I don't think the religious can have it all ways, you see. I mean, if intercessory prayer, for example, is valid, and if God can be called upon to save, well, let's take the most obvious example, the life of a sick child, and the child recovers, then God has just taken on all the, if that happens and is attributable to the intercession, then God has just taken on the responsibility for all the children who don't recover. And the religious get very uneasy when you talk to them like this, because they both do want to say that help is available from on high, but if it's available sometimes, why isn't it available all the time? Why is it so maldistributed? Why is it so random? Why is it so capricious? It only replaces the argument about suffering and evil to where it was in the very first place. Which is why the more intelligent religions are very sparing about claiming divine intervention, because they don't want to arouse too great a demand for it. Now, you may be asking the wrong person in that when I hear a lot of this stuff, it's white noise to me. If someone dear to me had died, well, this has happened to me as a matter of fact, if someone comes up to me and says, well, at least they're in a better place now, I don't even remember to be insulted, really. Though I could take offense, I think, at such a fatuous thing being said to me uninvited. But what I can't understand is why I can't put myself in the position of someone who would be pleased and comforted to hear that. I just can't. I'm really sorry. Nor can I imagine myself saying it to someone who suffered a real loss. I can't imagine the expression I'd have to put on my face to say such a thing. So, maybe I'm not the ideal person to put this question. Well, Daniel Dennett, who's by way of a sort of colleague of mine in this course, he has written a wonderful book called Breaking the Spell, which I recommend to you. Possibly available at fine bookstores everywhere, as mine is, by the way, here. And in it he says that belief in belief, as he puts it, may very well have salutary effects or have had them. For example, this is not very controversial, but it's a good example. In the days when there was no germ theory of disease, and when, for example, quite senior divines like Timothy Dwight, the founder of Yale, condemned smallpox vaccination because it was an interference with God's design, which presumably it is, if he designed the smallpox virus. Now, if you were an ignorant fool and you went to the witch doctor ceremony to be lectured by another cynical ignorant fool, you still might have a better chance of recovery, because everybody knows that morale and optimism does play an X factor role in good health. So that there may well be benefits to, or have been benefits to belief, but I think that we, if I can speak so conceitedly, Eurocentrically perhaps, but have reached the point where that's long ago hit diminishing returns. That really the emancipation of the mind requires us to put that sort of thing behind us. The reason why there's a gulf fixed between me and a believer, and also why I have difficulty understanding quite why it is that believers do believe it, is this. If it was demonstrated to me that Jesus of Nazareth had never existed, right, that there was no truth to the story at all, my life would go on exactly as it had, and that all the dilemmas that face us would, in my view, be precisely the same as they always are. How do we live the good life? What are our responsibilities to one another? How can we improve on this? How can we build the just city? All of these questions would remain as they will for every generation. To the believer, it would have to be a calamity to discover that this person never existed. They would have to say that their lives were pointless, were meaningless. Now, just think for a second what a confession that constitutes. What an abject confession that is. Well, in that case, I don't care, they'd have to say. Without as St. Paul says, if there was no resurrection, no bodily resurrection, then we are of all people the most miserable. What is it to believe this kind of thing? If I say to a Muslim, you know that the Prophet Muhammad very probably didn't exist anyway, he certainly didn't take dictation from the Archangel Gabriel, don't be silly. The guy acts as if I've said the most unbelievably horrible thing. as if life would be unlivable if what I said was true, or even if I was allowed to say it. What is this? What is this? I ask you. It belongs to the childhood of the race. It belongs to our bawling, spoiled infancy. We have to grow up and get over this. Now, why it is that people believe it, I think I can make a guess. I think people are afraid of dying. And I also think that they can be persuaded that an exception can be made in their own case. If they make the relevant propitiations and so on. I'm not of that view. I'm really not. I mean, just try it. Just try standing in the airport or on the street, watching, see them come towards you. Ask first which species of primate they'd be. Okay, is that a chimpanzee there? Is that a silverback gorilla there? Is that an orangutan there? You'll find everyone you know falls into one category or another. It passes the time at airports. And then you say, now look at that one. Now if that one had gone to church every day and gone to confession every week, and tithed himself and so on, he'd be absolutely assured of eternal life. He'd have nothing to worry about. See if you can make yourself believe it. Then see if you can make yourself believe it about yourself. Well, obviously people can, and there are obviously people who know how to make a living out of this racket. But that's why when I'm told, well, at least you must respect people of faith, I say, well, actually I don't. I don't think lying to children for a living is a respectable occupation.